Okay, we're up to then a new parak, Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, Shloshim Minei Isurim, and now it really deals with the. And until now we've been dealing with more with the how you come in us, the Bimei Nazir, Naziris, and all kinds of interesting scenarios. But now we're going to deal with the nuts and bolts of Naziris, meaning the actual Naziris itself, and the Isra of Achila, the Isra of Teglachas, and the Isra of Tamil Mesim. So it behooves us to go ahead and go through the parsha. So it just so happens that, what do we have over here? We have the parsha, and here it is. Okay, it says Ish Kiyafli Linda Ned Nazla Hashem, right? Miyayin b'Sheicha Yazir. From Yayin, Sheicha does not mean beer; it means old wine. Yayin is new wine. Sheicha is old wine. Yazir, he should separate. Chaymitz Yayin, the vinegar of wine. The Chaymitz Sheicha, and the vinegar of antiquated wine. Lo Yishtei shouldn't drink. And any grapes that are soaked, lo yishte, you shouldn't drink. If you take grapes and put it in water, you shouldn't drink that as well. Ba'novim lachim, and grapes that are moist, vivashim, or raisins that are dried out, lo yochel, you shouldn't eat. Kol yemei nizroi mikol she'yosav, and again, this seems to be a little redundant over here. Kol yemei nizroi mikol she'yosav migefen hayayim. Anything that is made from the gefen of the yayin, michartsanim, we'll see it's machloikas what that is. Vad zog, we'll see machloikas what is lo yochel. Kol yemei neder nizroi tar lo yaval roishay. So the first psukim deal with the isra of shtiyas achilas anovim and shtiyas yayin, and now kol yemei neder nizroi tar lo yaval roishay. Right, he shouldn't pick a razor over his head. Ad moles hayom masher yazel Hashem kodesh Gadol Peras Arosha. We said this is Tam Naziris, is Shleishim Yom, from we learned Kodesh Yiyeh. And the diak also is that the Nazir would only be asked to cut the hair on his head. Other parts of his body would not be over the Isser. Right? If he, let's say he cut from his armpit, he would not be over the Isser. Kol Yemei Azir Hashem, the third Isser, Al Nefesh Meis Lo Yavoi, he shouldn't go ahead and be Tamal Mesim. La'aviv L'ima La'achel L'chaisel Lo Yitamal Lahem B'Maisam, can't even be Tamal to his parents, his siblings. Because the crown of Hashem is on his head. So that is, the order of is one, Pasha Achila Shtia. Second, we have this of Teglachas, and third, we have this about of Tamil Mason. We're going to focus today mainly on this and the seeming redundancy of the psukim. What does each one come to add? So we'll be going back to that. Just to begin the parak, it's interesting to note the order of things. Our first is yayin and anovim. Then is the middle is razor, haircut, and the third is what is mason. So let's begin the parak. Bes Hashem Yishtev Atzlacha Rabba in our quest to understand Masechta Naziris a little better. Says the Mishnah, Shloisha Mine Asurim B'Nazir. There are three minim that are Asa B'Nazir, Hatuma, Vatiglachas, Vayotzim and Agefen. So I was bothered by two things. One, the lashon of minim, and two, the order is not the order of the Torah, right? In the Torah, we have Tuma last, Tiglachas we have in the second place, as here, and Yotzim and Agefen we have what in first place, and here it's in third place. So I use this sefer called Shiri Hayoim from Rav Michal Zilber Zaygen Stark, and he quotes a sefer called Shoshanim LeDavid over here. And listen what he says over here. Why does it say that a Nazir's Gimel Minim versus Gimel Devarim, right? You see three things matters. What does the word Minim mean? It should say Devarim, right? So he says that the Nazir is usher in three types of parts of his body. The Tumah is extraneous, right? He touches it. The Tiglachas is the body, is the head, and the drinking is ingesting it. So it's going from more removed to the most pertinent to him, right? Mason. So these are three minim. In other words, it's not the same type. There are three types of aspects of the Naziris that are problematic. One aspect is what is the issue of the external, touching Tumah. Two, the hair which is on top of the body but not part of the body. and the isser of drinking wine or eating grapes, which is again is then in the body, not outside the body, not on top of the body, and therefore it goes in that order from less to worse, and that will also explain why the order is a little bit lav dafka, right? So very interesting sefer called Shoshana LeDavid that I found here in quoted in secondary source in the Shira Yoin. So Shloshim meaning Yisurim b'Nazir atum v'teglachas v'yotzim min hagefen v'chol hayotzim min hagefen mitztar from zemzeh. And anything that's yotzim in a gefen that we describe, chatzanim, zogim, all these things, they be mitzdarif. With the shear of achila, we're going to see universally is a kazayas, and it's so if you don't have to eat a kazayas of grapes with chatzanim or zagim would also go ahead and be chayiv. Be aware that it seems to be that when we view the grape, we're going to view it as three different parts. We're going to view it as according to one pshat, the chatzon is the outside. According to the other pshat, it's the seed, and then the other one is the other one will be the skin. Whatever the chatzon is, the zag is the opposite. It's either the skin or the seed, and then you have the pulp of the grape. So they're different parts of it. So you'd be chayiv if you ate. Let's say you only had half a kazayas of pulp, but it mitzaref with the skin and the seed, you would be chayiv pashtus. Okay. And you'll be chayiv till you the kazayas. Okay, so this is the shita Rabbeinu Tam, that this is universal shita. We're going to see a Mishnah Rishona in a second. So if we're going to introduce a Mishnah Rishona, then this must be the Mishnah Achroina, which is kind of funny because Rishona usually means first. You would introduce Rishona first rather than second. So what we're doing now is we're saying a universal din. This, whether it's the Mishnah Rishona or Mishnah Achroina, the shear of Achila by a Nazir is no different than any other place. The shear is the shear of Achila. The shear is the shear of Achila.
This question: what does it mean, Mishnah Rishona, Mishnah Achroina? What does that mean in the Gemara, and what does that mean? What's first and second?
You learn something first. In other words, this is the way they held at first. And then it changed. That's what Mishnah Rishona and Mishnah Achroina is. In other words, this is the first and then the second. And it changed. Okay? So this is the pshat right now. So right now, Shir Achila is universal across the board. Shir Achila is universal across the board. It's the Shir is what is the Kasayas. Now, that's the universal. Mishnah Rishona Oimeres, the first Mishnah Rishona, right? In fact, the Bach takes out from the word Oimeres Nimchak Ad Sheyishter Revias Yayin. Okay, but anyway, let's keep this gersa. When it comes to drinking, then the machloikus between the Mishnah Rishona and Mishnah Achroina progresses. According to Mishnah Rishona, you need a revius. In other words, a kazayas not. A revius, guys, is more than a kazayas. A revius, which is a liquid measure, is more than a kazayas, which is a solid measure. Rashi brings in that you go ahead. How do you take it? You take a liquid and you put the kazayas in, and whatever it displaces, that's how you go ahead and switch from a liquid to a solid to a liquid. So according to this, it's not universal across the board in achila and shtia. Shtia would be revius. However, Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion, afilu shara pitoi biyayin. Even if you would soak pas in bread, v'yesh bo kadei litzaref, and you have the amount to go ahead and combine, kazayis chayev. So Rabbi Akiva seems to be saying that the shear of shtia is the same as the shear of achila, which is a kazayis. So that would be the machloikas over there. That what's the shear of achila? Everyone says kazayis. What's the shear of shtia of drinking? Mishnah Rishona Revius, which is a larger shear, maybe Akiva, which is Kazayas, and he brings it from Mishras. Now, I just to digress for 1 second, because there really is an important din. This din of Mishras Nazir teaches us a phenomenal halacha. When you think about eating Maicholas Yisuris, right? So, for example, if you go ahead, you take a pig, Le'aleinu, and you cook it. And then you take the pig out, good, and you eat it's in the pot. You take for granted you're eating pig. You don't even think about it, correct? It's usher. And The only reason it's asa is because the svar of tam ke'ikar, that will view the tam, the taste of something like the ikar, will view the flavor that is expunged from the pig as pig itself. One of the ways we know that is from mishras yayin. In other words, if you take wine and soak bread in wine, the bread is going to be asa because it has the tam of the yayin in there. If that's mishras, you learn that from the very interesting halacha. There's a Rashi in Psachim Daf Mem Daled Amud Beis. The Chiddush Rabbi Kiva guys is even more than tam ki'ika. Let's say you'd have wine, you have a piece of bread, and half of the bread, half a zayas of the bread is in the wine, and half of a bread is out totally, and it's not in the wine itself. It would be mitzaref. Rabbi Kiva says, Rashi learns that even the part that has no wine in it will be mitzaref to the share of what? Of shtia, of wine, to michayev me for mishras anavim. It's very fascinating. It's a huge sugya. We're going to get to it. We're going to get to the sugya of tam ika. I just thought I'd mention it now.
Let me ask you a question. If I have a kazayas of bread, right? Let's say it's a cube, right? One by one. I'm just making up something, right? If I have a kazayas of bread, then I take it and I squish it down to and make it very, very tight. It's still a kazayas, even though it's not one by one now. It's half by half because I took out all the air bubbles or whatever it is.
Correct.
Now, if I don't squeeze it down to squeeze it down, the wine that's inside, if I put it into bread, there's let's say a half a revius or something of wine inside. No, I mean the wine doesn't disappear just because it got absorbed by the bread.
No, I'm saying let's say you would have. You don't have it in. It's not there. It's absorbed in something, right? So it's
right,
not.
But if it gets absorbed, it's not there. I mean, if I have a piece of bread that's dripping.
We'll discuss this when we get to the sugya tam kick. I'm just mentioning it, derech agav. I'm mentioning. I don't want to lose the main point. Okay.
No, I'm talking about the main point here by the wine. That's
not the main point. This whole tam kick I'm just introducing as a side point right now.
I'm not talking about tam kick. You're saying that the kazayas of wine and a kazay or a revius of wine.
In other words, you would not have a kazayas of bread. You'd have a half a zayas of bread. You put wine in, now you'd have a full zayas. That's the case. Not where you have an existing zayas of bread. Shragi. It's mean that the bread, which in other words, you only have half to begin with. By going ahead and sticking it in bread, right? The bread now is going to get a halacha out of wine. That's the chiddush.
Oh, okay.
Now, each one separately. It's even though the parsha we saw as a cholent, you would be chayiv each one separately. Rebbe Loza ben Azariah ein chayiv at sheyochel shnei chetzanim v'zag. In other words, if you chetzanim, in order to be chayiv, you need at least two. Let's go with the word seeds. Let's use chetzanim as seeds. Since the Torah uses a lashon of plural, you wouldn't be chayiv for one seed. You would need what? 2 seeds. You would need 2 seeds. You'd be 2 seeds you need. And the Brisker Rav says a big chiddush over here. What is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah come to teach me? He's come to teach me that even if this is less than a kazayas, you'll be chayiv. There's a halacha in Hilchos Taruvis that when do you need a kazayas? That if the thing is not a total entity on itself. If it's a total entity on itself, let's say a birya, you don't need a kazayas of ants to be chayiv for eating ants. Even if you need 1 ant, as minuscule as it is, you'll be chayiv. It's a birya. Says the Brisker Rav, but Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is telling you that you be chayiv al zberya, that the seeds have a din of a birya, and therefore you be chayiv even without a kazayas. So it's a huge chiddush of the Brisker Rav, the Griz, to go ahead and explain the machloikas over here. It's a big chiddush, guys. You hear that it's you be chayiv as al zberya. It would be considered an entity by itself, and therefore you wouldn't even need a kazayas. Now, what are chatzanim, what are zogim? Eluhin chatzanim, ve'eluhin zogim. These are chatzanim, these are zogim. Hachatzanim is elu hachitzoinim. That's the skins. The hazagim and the zagim and what's the zag? Elu hapnimim. That's the pit. That's the inside, not the pulp. That's the pit. Divrei Rebbe Yehuda. So Yehuda says that what? That the skin is the outside and the zag is the inside. Rabbi Yossi no. Shleitita, don't make a mistake. Is that kizug shel behema hachitzoin is zug vapnimi inbo. In other words, if you have a bell, right? You have a bell. The outside part is the zug, and the clapper, the inval, is the inside. So he disagrees. He says, Rabbi Yossi says the zag is what is the skin, and the chartzon is the seed. And the way to remember it is by a bell, the zag is the outside. So you remember the zag part, that would be your hit. So we have machloikis between Rabbi Yehuda, what is the chartzon and what is zogim. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the zag is the pit, and the chatzanim is the skin. According to Rabbi Yossi, it's the opposite. The zag is the skin, is the skin, and the chatzan is the pit. Right? The chatzan is the pit. Okay, now. Says the Gemara, Shloisha mine isurim b'nazir, hatuma tiglachas v'isur yayin, right? Hayotzim min gefen in, dafka, the pasuk says that extracts from gefen, but gefen atzmoi loy, but the gefen itself not. What does that mean? That the leaves or the shoots, which are edible but are not what the thing that's yotzim min gefen, right? I think the Syrians eat grape leaves. Am I correct? We eat stuffed cabbage. I think the Syrians eat grape leaves. So according to us, according to could the Syrian Nazir eat grape leaves? That would be the nafkamina over here. But not nafkamina is grape leaves. Masnisan, when it says, our Mishnah seems to say that grape leaves will be muta because they're not the geffen itself. Let's view grape leaves as the geffen itself. And our Mishnah would not be like Rabbi Eliezer, would not like me, Rabbi Eliezer. Tanya. Rabbi Lazar, I'm there. Afilu olin v'lulavim, even the leaves and the shoots b'mashma. In other words, they would say it's asa not only to eat the anavim and the yotzim and anavim and the yotzim and gefen, right? But even what the lulavim mashma, the anavim are the yotzim obviously and the gefen. Ikka the army, you can make the diak from the ratio, but you make the diak from the seifa. In a chayiv, take out the word ella at sheyochel min anavim. Kazayas, in other words, there's no difference between the ratio and the sefer. The question is, in either case, Rabbi Eliezer is learning that you can't eat leaves. The question is, where do you learn it from? Do you learn it from the inference of the ratio or the inference of the sefer? That's only nafkamina. But so the bottom line, like the Tanakama, you will be able to eat grape leaves. Rabbi Eliezer will not be able to eat grape leaves. Okay. Spoken out many times the difference between klalu plat and riboy miyot. Okay, it's many times those people have been listening share, but I do it every single time. You could view this bottle as empty. The bottle's totally empty, right? And the bottle's empty, and that's my klal. I have a bottle, and comes along my prat and fills the bottle. Fills the bottle up. So whatever you fill in the bottle is what the prat says, what the specific says. Now, so the only thing that would be asa, let's say in this case, would be water. But you'd be able to drink any other liquid would be mutter, correct? So the klal would say a liquid's asa. What kind of liquid? Only water. Comes along another klal, and that would go ahead and say anything that's similar to water. So anything that you could drink, anything that has H2O in it would be asa, but something that doesn't, I don't know what it would be mutter. So in other words, we're not saying it has to be exactly what's in there, but anything similar to that has the identity and the component of water will be asa. That's the way Kalpal works. Ribui miyot is another way to dash in the Torah. How Ribui works is I'm starting off this with every single thing in the world. This is full of everything. It's this every single liquid is in here. Comes along the miyot and says, well, maybe not every single liquid, only there's one liquid I'm going to take out. And so therefore, ribui miyat for ribui is always going to go ahead and be more inclusive than a kalu prat. Because ribui miyat is I'm going to only be mayat one thing. So in this case, let's say I'd be mayat, I'm just picking arbitrarily, I'll be mayat Snapple. But any other thing, any other liquid would be okay, except Snapple. That won't be okay. Right? Bashen came the ribui miyat, the kalu prat, the klal would include Snapple. So the question is, how do you go ahead and darshan? You have klal, pratu, klal, and ribui. How do you darshan the Torah? There's two ways. Now, obviously, we paskin, if you read Rabbi Yishmael, we paskin klal prat, correct? So now, you have a klal, a rule, prat. Aim b'chlal or masha prat. The only thing would be water. Comes along a second klal, what does it do? It says kain water and includes more things. Good? Identify with water. We dash in the way. Ribui miyut. Riboy, every single liquid in the world. Miyat, you're going to take out one liquid, but what's going to remain in there is almost everything. That's the way it works. So the question is over here is, when we have this parsha, right? If you look over here, let's go. Miyayim v'sheicha yazir, that's a prat. Chemes yayim v'chemes sheicha is a prat. Lo yishta. V'chol mishras anovim lo yishta. V'anovim lachim yiveshim lo yoichal. Okay, now kol asher yiyasa migefen ayaya. Now this is kol asher yiyasa migefen ayaya. Anything that comes from the wine is what is a cloud. Hayayim mechatzanim ad zag is what is a prat. So I have over here, this pasuk is describing a prat. Miyayim v'sheicha yazir. Then I have a klal of what? Of kol yimei nizrei kol asher yiyasa gefen is a klal. Then I have mechatzanim ad zag is what is a prat. So the chiddush of our Gemara is going to be, guys, a prat, klal uprat is the same thing as a klal prat uklal. Specific, general, specific is the same thing as general, specific, general. That's the chiddush over here. Rabbi Eliezer, he dashes the Torah ribi miyot. Therefore, he's going to go ahead and include more things. What's he including? He's including grape leaves and grape shoots. The Chachamim are saying, no, grape leaves and grape shoots are not similar to our prat. Our prat is only including things that are pre and something that's psoilus pre, like chometz. So therefore, that's going to be the machloikis. Why Rabbi Eliezer includes in his limud, he includes grape leaves, and why the Chachamim do not. Rabbi Eliezer is going to dash and review a miyut. Everything's going to be in the ballpark. I'm going to take out one thing. You know what I'm going to take out? A piece of grape wood, which is inedible, but everything else is included, including grape leaves. The Chacham will say, no, grape leaves are not included because they're not similar to the prat, because they don't dash in ribamiyat. And the prat is only describing what? Something that is a pre, v'yotzim in a pre. That's I just gave you the Gemara, guys. Let's see it inside. What's the machloikis between the Tanakama who does not include grape leaves in the Isser of a Nazir and Rabbi Eliezer who does? Rabbi Eliezer darish ribu yomiyuto. He dashes the Torah derech ribu yomiyut. Rabbonon the Shari, the Rabbonon darshi, they darshin klalu prate. They darshin derech klalu prat. Rabbi Eliezer dashi ribu yomiyut miyayim b'sheichi yazer. That's a miyut, correct? Only from those specifics. Wine and antic wine, yasser. Mikola sheyasa migefen ayayin riboy. Now that's a riboy. So you have a miyut riboy now. Miyut v'riboy riboy akol. Now what does it come to include? Everything. Ma riboy kol mili. Now ma miyut shebeshta, wooden parts of the vine. So we have the limud, the source for the belasa why grape leaves are rasa. Rabbanon darshi, the Rabbanon they darshan klalu prati. They darshan klalu prat. Miyayim v'sheicha yazer is a prat, specific. Mikol sheyosim migefen ayayin is a cloud. Mechatzan v'adzag chazu prat. Pratu klalu prat, iyatadon el ka'ena prat. Ma prat mefurish pri upsoilus pri. Just like the prat goes ahead and includes a pri, la'anovim upsoilus pri the chometz. I've called pri upsoilus pri. Good. Ima prat mefurish pri gomor, because after all, it's describing anovim. I've called pre-gomer. Arminim came. What's the Torah leaving over? Shlayonru. Anovim lachim v'yaveshim haksivi. You're speaking about dried, or wet or dried. That's included. Yayin v'chaymetz haksivi. So therefore, obviously, there must be some type of limud that is coming to exclude. Hayin lechalodin kilashin achroin, like the pre-gomer. El kilashin rishon, just the pre. Says Gemara. Now in the end, you're telling me you're going to include everything. Right? Why do you have to tell me chatzanim adzag if you're including everything? In other words, why, if you're going to go ahead and say the following, guys, let me get this up again. You're telling me the following. Yayin v'sheichi yazer is a prat. Kol yaser yayin is a cloud. You're including everything that's that's edible. Notice anything that's edible, right? Anything that's edible, that's a pre, and yotzim in a pre is included. So why does this last thing come? What's chatzan v'agzag coming to include that I didn't know? From my klalu prat, I know that what? Anything that's a pre, and yotzim in a pre, is also for a Nazir. So why do you have to mention Chatzanim Vadzag? What is that coming? Obviously, Chatzanim Vadzag are part of a grape. So obviously they're also. So what is that stated for? Why am I stating that? Says the Gemara. Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. I'll tell you what we're stating it for. Anytime you find a prat and a klal, like over here, right? You can't dash in ke'ena prat, elanasa klal moisev ala prat, right? You can't dash in a ke'ena prat, elanasa klal moisev ala prat. Okay, watch. Guys, here's what you'd have. You'd have a prat, yayin v'shecha, that would be usher. Comes along the klal of kol asher yosem v'gefen hayayin, and it's moisif on this, meaning there's more things that are usher. You're not limited to something that is identifies like this. Yayin v'shecha yazav chaymetz. In other words, it would add on to isser. What does Mechatzan v'azag say? That we're going to dash in this the same way we dash in a klal pratu klal, we're going to dash in a prat klal prat. We're going to dash in the same way, and saying anything that is similar to yayin v'shecha, meaning a pri, gomer, and yaitza, as opposed to lum. If we go ahead, guys, and just have the pasuk of mikol sheyasa migefen hayayin, I might think that what? Look, guys, look at what I'm doing over here. Yayin v'shecha these are all things that come out of grapes. Enough of them are grapes themselves. Comes along the kosher yasa gefen, I would say maybe even grape leaves are rasa, because this klal is being moisif on this prat. So even though the prat is describing, pri and yotzim and pri, maybe mikol yasa gefen, this klal is going to come to say even what, even grape leaves. Therefore, comes along mechatsan and vadzag and tell me no. This prat tells me that just like I darshan klal pratu klal, I'll darshan prat klal prat the same way, and we'll go ahead and say just like the prat is saying something that is what is a pri and yotzim and a pri, this would exclude grape leaves. So that's what the second part is doing to teach me. Anytime you have guys, it's a universal rule now. Anytime you have a prat klal prat, it's the same thing as a klal prat klal. That's so let's just see the words again. You can't go ahead and say, well, we'll use the prat to identify anything similar to only if there's another klal. I'd say the klal is moisev on the prat, to include not something similar to the prat. In other words, grape leaves would also be asa, even though it's not similar to the prat, because it's not a pri, but since the klal is said after the prat, it adds onto it. But then you have another prat afterwards, then I'll darshan it like a klal pratu klal, and say the only thing a nazir is asur on is something that's similar to the prat, which is pre-gomer and something yaitz from it. Okay, let's do it outside one more time. So we'll use my hands. We always use the hands, right? So now we have a rule of thumb. Literally, excuse the fun. Don't excuse it. I think it's a good fun. Anyway, here you go. You have a klal, pratu klal. So anything that what this does says that you're not limited to the prat, guys, but anything that's similar to the prat. That's what this klal does. So good. Now let's say I'd reverse it. Let's say I would have. This would be a prat. This would be a klal. So what happens now? The prat over here is anything that has wine, anything that comes from grapes, right? Like anything that's chaymitz. The klal then would say, well, you're not limited to that. I'm not going to darshan ke'ein that. I'm going to say I'm adding on to that. Not only that, but even something not similar to that, grape leaves. Comes along now the other prat and says, oh, just like the klal pratu klal, you're going to darshan the ke'ena prat. So to the prat klal prat, the darshan the ke'ena. That's what it's accomplishing. That's what it's accomplishing. Amamar, going back over the brisa. first white line. Ma prat mafurish pre upsilas pre. The prat includes pre and psilas pre. Chaimitz is psilas pre, guys, right? Af kol pre psilas pre. Now, pre, what a pre is inve, grapes. Psilas pre, maihi, what a psilas pre is chaimitz, is what is vinegar. Af kol pre, so too all pre. Maihi, what is kol pre that you're coming to include? That will be guharki, immature, unripened grapes. That will be included, immature grapes. Af kol the psilas pre, maihi, and what does the psilas pre come to include? Rav Kahana, lasuye invade the carbon. Let's say you have grapes that became wormy, that will be included. In other words, that they will be also to a nazir. The ad zag, what about the prat of ad zag? What does that come to teach me? Ravina, la suye, the bein habenayim. That would include the grapes that are bein habinayim. If you view a cluster of grapes, how do they ripen? Just look at your box of Raisin Bran. You have this big sun, and it's going ahead and shining on the grapes. Good. So in the cluster of grapes, there are bein habinayim. There are grapes that are hidden from the sun because they're being overshadowed, right? They're being a barrier, right? The outside grapes are a barrier to the inside grapes. Those are bein habinayim, and they would be included. Vadzag, they would be included as well. And this Vadzag would be like the pashtus, like the shita of Rabbi Yosi, that the zag is the skin rather than the chartzan, right? And you're talking about it being shaded, sheltered. That's the word I was looking for, sheltered from the sun. Okay, Yosim Idvarenu, let's just make a quick chazara. We have 3 Yisurim by Nasir under discussion. The first one being the Isser of grapes and Yosim grapes and everything similar to that. We have the Isser of Tiglachas, the Isser of Tomei Mason. We haven't discussed that at all. We saw a machloikis between the Mishnah Rishona and Mishnah Achroina, according to Rabbeinu Tam, vis-a-vis Shtia. Later, Mishnah Rishona, Shtia is a share of Vias, despite Achila being a share of Kazayas. Later, Rabbi Mishnah Achroina, even the share of Shtia is the share of a Kazayas. Again, it's a Chumrah. It's a smaller share than Revias. We saw the machloikis between Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Lazar, and the Chachamim about grape leaves, because the grape leaf is not pre or Yotzim and pre. Rabbi Lezer Udash in the Torah der Ribu Miyot would include grape leaves. The Chachamim Udash in the Torah der Kalaprat would exclude grape leaves. Have a great day.